From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris with you. Good show on tap on this Tuesday. Hope you are doing well, and it's nice to have you here. This is a live show, by the way. I keep trying to say that at the top of each of these programs since we're coming out of the holidays when we had a lot of taped shows. But this is live, direct. I'm here for real. Pinch me, I'll say ouch. And we're going to open up the phone lines for you as we're going to talk, as we frequently do at least once a month or so, about the topic of, I guess, I'm trying to make it so it appeals to everyone. It's not just elder law, meaning just for folks who are a little bit older. It can also apply to, their children and others who care about older loved ones and the like. And we've been doing this for years with Takacs and McGinnis. I think Tim Takacs has been coming on this program for years and is one of the foremost experts on this field, I think, in the country. I've learned so much from him, and his staff's fantastic. And this morning, it's one of the young guns. I remember when they brought him on board. And look, he's just making a name for himself. Actually, the name was already made because it was an all-pro running back for the Titans. But I think with time, people will come to recognize that Chris Johnson is an all-pro attorney.
Morning, Nick. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. You crack me up every time.
You guffaw as I do the intros and all this. It's good to have you on. It's nice to see you. And
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah.
We're back at it again, and we're going to open up the lines. But, since this is the new year and we've got people retuning in and going, I always would give Tim or Barbara and you now a chance, maybe just at the top of the show, to throw out for them what types of things elder law can help them with. And that can maybe stimulate calls and also lead us in a direction of what we want to talk about. Whether we get calls or not, a lot of people listen. Elder law, okay, zero in on it. Let them know what kind of issues you guys deal with for your clients.
It's real simple, Nick.
Okay.
We take care of people's personal care needs, their financial needs, and their legal needs, and we do it over time. And we do that because those three are inextricably linked. Your financial needs are going to push upon your care needs are going to push on your financial needs. We need all the legal documentation in place to make sure everything goes in the manner it should, and that the people you want to be in charge are going to be in charge. And so we need to make sure that all three of those are on the same sheet of music, that everything's married up and everything's working together symbiotically. And so you talk about being more than, reaching out to more than just elderly. Everyone needs an estate plan. If you're over 18, and I kind of think of it as it's New Year's resolution time.
Right.
And those things that we put off from the last year or the previous years, and we're like, no, this year's going to be the year. And as we hopefully come out of this pandemic, this is the year to set that New Year's resolution and say, I'm going to get my ducks in a row. I'm going to get that will done. I'm going to get my powers of attorney in place. And once they're done, not that you don't look at them from time to time and still make sure they're doing, but once it's done, it's done. You've rolled that hill up the mountain, and you can say, that's good. I can move on to other things.
You don't have to worry.
You don't have to worry because you sat down and you thought about it, and you got a seasoned professional to work with you. You put those documents in place, and especially for the younger people, most often that'll be good for years. Hey, everything to my wife, if not to my wife, to my children, and that's probably won't change for years and years and years. And then it's just making sure every year you just give it a read, make sure it still says what you want it to say.
Do you have any inkling at what percent of the population actually has power of attorney in place or actually has a will put together? And I'm not talking about just the elderly, but I mean, what 30-year-old has a will in place? I'm sure there's some.
Oh, there are some.
But they just don't think about it. And so, I mean, is it half the population out there? You think it's higher
I
than
think
that?
It would be lower than that, and that's anecdotally from what we see in the office and when we speak to people, because here's the thing, we speak to the elders often because that's our job. A lot of times, and the best meetings happen when they bring the kids in, when we have the whole family sitting around the table and talking through things, and all the time it'll come up, well, do you have a plan? Because the kids are linked into this planning, and they'll go, no, we've been meaning to get that done. And they're our age, they're younger and they haven't really thought about it, and they're saying, yeah, this is kind of a good trigger for me. Usually that's the trigger for our generation, is when their parents kind of get in the thick of it.
That was it for me.
That was it.
That was it for me. Because you're right, life can come at you fast. And that's what you got to realize. You're sitting there thinking, well, I'll get around to it or whatever. And that's fine. Trust me, I've been there. But because of what you just said, when we had to get power of attorney, I didn't really fully understand that anyway for my folks who are older and need some help. It made me think about myself as well. And that's just it, is the point. You want to have it in place because if you wait until, unfortunately, maybe a disaster happens, you're dealing with the disaster. And then you've got this other stuff you have for what you don't have power of attorney. What you going to do?
That's exactly right. And what I always say is when you're dealing with a disaster, you want to focus on the disaster.
Right.
You don't want to be scrambling trying to do other things. If someone gets sick, has a medical event, has a stroke's in the hospital, you want to be there and be there for them. And when they're asking, do you have authority to make medical decisions? You're like, yep, here's the piece of paper. Let's get talking. Let's work with the doctor and let's move as quickly as possible. You don't want to say, no, I need to meet with the attorney. I've been needing to do this, because the person who needs to meet with the attorney is lying there in the bed. And that's the frightening thing. And so you want to get that done ahead of time, because if you don't have power of attorney and they've lost capacity, now we're looking at a conservatorship. And that's a court proceeding. And you can file for an emergency one, but it's just much more difficult.
Oh, can you imagine?
No.
Having to go through that when you're dealing with someone who's ill. And I was wondering, with your practice, obviously you have a lot of seniors, and their families helping them along the way. But has it changed things with regard to COVID? I mean, part of what I'm saying here is that you have seniors that may end up in a COVID ward, and you can't go in there with them.
No.
You can't, and I'm just wondering that, especially if they're incapacitated, but even if they're talking, they're isolated in COVID while they're healing and hopefully getting better, or getting worse, and so their family members can't even get to them. I would think that's even more important at that point, to have a power of attorney.
Absolutely. And I will say, at the beginning of this, way back, if we can remember back in March 2020, it changed everything, because literally nursing homes locked down, skilled nursing facilities, family members could not get in. They were lucky if they could get to a window and see their loved one. And that affected how to sign legal documents. Maybe they had capacity, but how do we get the document in the facility for them to sign? It needs to be notarized, so we need the notary public to witness that signature. So somehow that has to happen. And so the state loosened the laws through some executive order regarding remote signatures and witnessing over video teleconference, which I think was fantastic decision making by the state. And I hope in the long run it's memorialized forever in law. With technology these days, there's no reason why we can't do witnesses remotely, why we can't do notaries remotely, because we have the technology and we're not going back. It's like the smartphone. Everyone's like, oh, we lament that it distracts us and all these other things, and it does. And I think we all think we should spend less time on it. But the fact is, it's technology that's here, and if you're not using it, we're probably falling behind. And so all of that happened. Things have calmed down a little bit. I think the country's getting to the point where we're learning to live with the virus. We have a vaccine. The variants that are coming out seem to at least be less fatal, which is a good thing. And so now it's more of a sickness, and I think hopefully we will come out of this at some point. I feel like a broken record. I think we've said that before.
Yeah, but as we come out of it, things have permanently changed, in some ways for the better.
That's right.
And what I mean by that, and what's good about COVID, is that we've learned to do other things other ways, and in some ways better. How many people have learned, as you just said, through technology, they can do it from home, they can do it over the internet. You don't have to be in an office, workplace. I would imagine, you do have an office in Goodlettsville, correct?
In Hendersonville.
I'm sorry, in Hendersonville. And, I remember a few years back, I think before you came on board, I actually went out there one day and visited with Tim and the group, and it's great staff. But I mean, you don't have as many people having to come right into the office anymore.
No, we do a lot of first meetings remotely, and it's fantastic. People, for whatever reason, either they're a little further away, so it expands the footprint that we can meet with people. Some people, just going out is just a kind of a frightening thing. Even this late in the pandemic, some people who are immunocompromised, who just getting out of bed and is difficult because they have other infirmities, to be able to do these meetings, it's giving them access they wouldn't otherwise have. And that is a net positive. It is very good for them, because that's one less person who's going to need a conservatorship. That's one more person who has their ducks in a row, and the people that have their ducks in a row, the end result is better. And that's what we're always looking to do for our clients. We want the end result to be better than what it was before they met us. Just take that trajectory and bump it up a little bit.
Okay, and before we take our first break, I know there may be some people thinking, all right, estate planning and all that, that's for the wealthy. I don't really have anything, so why should I bother? And they also may say, well, you know, I like the idea of this, but can I even afford to do something like this? Now, you know, there's people in different economic brackets. I'm sure you have clients that range from millionaires all the way down to those who maybe are basically on Social Security and just getting by. But the question is, if you have some of those on the lower end of the scale, how are you able to deal with them? And is it a sliding scale for payments? And how does it work? You know, obviously, if you're destitute, you can't afford to hire a lawyer. You just can't, unless you go someone who's pro bono. But someone who has means, but is not wealthy and thinks, well, can I even afford to do this? What would you tell people?
Two things. One of the things I love about the legal profession is the pro bono services that attorneys provide, and it's an attorney's duty to provide some pro bono services annually, and it's a wonderful thing because it's a way to give back to the community for those people that might not need that help. It really isn't a question of sliding scale of the finances as much as a sliding scale of what are the needs. The smaller the state, the simpler the needs, the simpler the planning, the less expensive it is. And so if people come in and they have limited means, certainly able to work with them. And there are other attorneys who do the same thing, because we all have that same charge. Our job is to serve our communities and look out for them. But one thing, I just had a meeting this week, or this past week, with someone who said, well, I don't really have an estate. And it was so funny. It was like, but you may, because they were meeting with someone who was leaving everything to them. And I said, listen, if you outlive this person, all of a sudden you will have an estate. And it kind of hit them, and they were like, oh goodness me, you know, I might have an estate. And so you don't just plan for the now, you plan for the future. And that's really the difference, is what is the potential? If you have some parents, you might not have something now, but maybe your parents have something they're going to leave to you. And before you think, well, maybe I don't think my parents really do, you'd be surprised. Parents don't always share everything, and they squirrel away money to make sure. It's so important. How many parents I've met with that said, the biggest thing I want to do is leave a legacy for my children. I'm always touched by that, because they will sacrifice a great deal to make sure they have something.
Between you and me, I don't get that. Okay, and my point is this, and I don't mean it, and I think that's wonderful. I hear what you're saying.
Right.
But with my folks, I have no need, and I have no desire to inherit something from them if something comes that way. But my thing is, use it, enjoy it, spend every last penny for the rest of your life for whatever the heck you want to do, and I'll get by. That's kind of my take. And I don't care about an inheritance or anything like that. And, you know, my parents don't think that way. I mean, if they leave something, they do. If they don't, they don't. But it's not like they're... And my son pretty much knows it, you know? If I have a little left over for you, fine. But trust me, I'm not doing something because I want to leave something for you. I got you through college. You go out and make your own dang way and pay for it and do it great, and we'll get along. But don't count on some big inheritance for me, because guess what? I'm going to spend it. Is that wrong?
I always
That's just the way I am. This legacy for my kids. I'm sorry. I'm leaving you a legacy by educating you, making you a good person. If you have a little leftover money, fine. But I'm spending it on me and my wife. We're going to do what the heck we want and, you know, survive.
So it always surprises me, Nick, how many people ask, Chris, will they tell me what their plan is? And they'll say, is this wrong or is this right? And I always say, it's yours.
To each his own.
That's right. There is no right or wrong on it. If that's what makes you happy and comfortable, I will say, I'm not sure that'll ever become the majority view, but I will certainly say in the last few years, things have trended in that direction. I've had my two favorite quotes are someone who told me, they said, Chris, my goal in life is to make sure the last check I write on this earth bounces, and I about doubled over laughing. And then I had someone else who said essentially what you said. Listen, they've gotten their inheritance. They got it through an education. I've helped them buy a house. We've helped them through their lifetime. This is our time. And I always tell them, it is what you want, because you're the one who earned this. You're the one who worked so hard. But the last check on earth bouncing, I said, good, very best of luck with the timing.
I don't begrudge anyone who feels otherwise and says, I want to leave something for my kids. I think that's great and good for you. But I don't want my son, and he wouldn't be this way anyway, sitting around waiting for me to die so he can get his grubby hands on my money. That's not, and he's not like that, but that's not the plan for me, you know? And I'll help him while we're around, and then when we're gone, if there's some left, he can have it. If not, hey, we set him up to make it on his own.
There you go.
That's the way it should be. Listen, we'll take a break. We can take some phone calls. We didn't really lay out the different things, but if you have questions about wills, I'm going to ask you about some things maybe happening in the new year that maybe seniors need to think about, trusts and the like. We'll get into all of that with you. The number on the screen, 737-7587, free legal advice this morning from the one and only Chris Johnson. We'll be back right after this.